Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Brogan, and today we are finally back for another chart stream. Now today, I am going to be professional. Today I've started the timer. Say hello to all of you beautiful people. Now, unfortunately, I did start streaming a bit late. I was watching something with my family downstairs, and we started the stream late, so about 5 minutes late. That's okay, I'm still here, and I'm ready to look at the charts, okay? It's been a while since we did the stream last. I can't remember exactly what day. Let me check the calendar. I don't know. I did one Saturday. I think I might have did it Thursday last, or something in that range. But we did talk about some things happening, and it's taken this long for it to kind of lead into it happening. So we can talk about some stuff, some new stuff today, and where we're going in the future. I am on YouTube, and I am also on Square. So hello to everyone. Hello to everyone on Square. Hopefully you are having a great day or evening so far. So to start things off, we have the liquidation heat map. I just wanted to have a little look. Well, not heat map, the total liquidations as a whole. If you want to quickly glance at it, see what's going on. It's pretty even between long and short. It's about 328 million, so nothing too out of the usual. You know, you do get quite high numbers during certain, especially as of late anyway, you do get high numbers, so nothing out of the ordinary there. Pretty fine there. So also wanted to go to the economic calendar, just see what's going on during the future. I know the government was closed, or there was a shutdown thingy-majiggy, and there was data which didn't come out and things like that. But it's back. I think it's back up, and now I think it's back to normal. So we do have some stuff coming up in the future, which obviously if I scroll on, this is of the entire November month. Going towards Thursday, November the 13th, we have some inflation rate month and year on year during this period of October. Obviously during November, announced for October's period. So forecasted, we have some numbers here, hoping less for inflation. And obviously core inflation, pretty much hoping the same numbers here, expecting maybe forecasted inflation year on year to be 0.1 up, I think. So sure, we'll see how it goes during Thursday. So the main point is nothing during today, nothing in the recent period anyway, so we can be sure that when we actually look at the charts, there won't be anything going on external. So that's fine, that's perfect. Going on to actual prices now, as we can see, 105,898. So actually what I'll say before we go on to actual prices is I will say what I left off with last time. So we were talking about the idea that we produced a low, we came upwards and then produced a higher low. And what I was saying on the stream was we have formed support in this new low we've produced. Obviously bear in mind of the scale we're in right now of the market, we have done this new low. Quite a bit ago, a few days ago to a week, whenever exactly the time frame was. And I was saying I could expect us to come up with not only on the fact that we should be producing a lower high, but on the fact that just on a fundamental scale, we have produced some supports, if you will, on the lower end where we were, and we were starting to fail to produce new lows, and we were starting to go upwards. So I was expecting us to come upwards to find an area above us to continue onwards. I believe most of you, I don't think there's any disagreement with that, and we've been doing that so far. I know as of KB anyway, I think Kishan's been doing that in Telegram as well. I'll shout out Kishan, who is also here in the chat. I know KB was also talking about rebalancing back upwards, which is kind of the consensus I had as well for the chart. So we've been doing pretty well on that regard, and that's kind of what we expected. So obviously seeing 106k for Bitcoin is pretty good. Seeing 35.6 for Ethereum's good. 167 for Solana is pretty good. So you can see about 1% up right now, 24 hour for Bitcoin. Ethereum's down 0.34. Again, we are coming towards resistance areas, but on the whole, we are going upwards a decent amount. Obviously, Solana as well, about 0.8% up 24 hour, but 0.38 up 7 day. We do have a massive area we are coming into for Solana, which we will look at in a second. We do have, I think the difference between Solana and Ethereum and Bitcoin, we talked about last stream as well. They are definitely in a bit of a difference here. Solana was very heavily coming downwards, and we are starting to recover quite decently. Again, we did have quite a low area for Solana, coming from a massive down period. Obviously, we had massive Trump. We had the Trump massive fall down. We had that retracement. Everyone was really positive. Then we dumped again, as expected. That's kind of what we were doing, and obviously then everyone was really angry because they didn't understand what was going on. Anyways, apart from those, we do have Syrup and CRO. We can see Syrup is 46.90. Syrup's doing really well. I think the difference as well with Syrup and most things is long term. For example, with let's say Bitcoin or Ethereum as well. The long term, I do want it to come down to some of these really low numbers. But with Syrup's case, we've obviously since conception of the coin gone up to our all-time highs, and we've slowly trickled down. And anyone who does very not surface level TA, I'm not dismaying anyone's TA, but someone who does the sort of like bull flag type or bull pennant type of TA could also see that Syrup could be bullish, because we do have one of those quote-unquote bull pennant patterns. But for me anyway, in terms of equilibrium and where we are relative to the high and the low, we have done a new longer term low on the higher time frame, and we've started to go back upwards. The only thing I said during when I was talking about this period quite a few streams ago was the fact that that this is this was a weekly time frame position to have a new low. So it was more of a sense that that I could expect this to play out over a longer period of time. So for it to, in the fact that we could go down again, for example, during the relative time frame, which we did do, but I think longer term we should be expecting upwards. So a very high time frame sentiment anyway for SERP was going to be very bullish. So in terms of seeing a bit more bullishness for SERP as opposed to other coins in the market, I'm not very surprised. We will have a quick glance at that when we go to SERP as well. So CRO's been pretty bad. I did expect pretty bad. My first target was about 20 cent, and then I was expecting about like 16, 17 cents. We've obviously come lower than that. We had a massive chunk fall, and everything just had a massive dump downwards. So 13.36 right now for CRO. So not bad. I am expecting pretty down across the board. I think SERP's the only coin I'm really looking at for longer term move upwards. Again, my opinion, which obviously based on emotions, which is what you shouldn't do when you look at the charts, is that I don't want to say anything against what the market should expect to do. For example, if everything's going to go down and then SERP's going to go upwards, it doesn't sit right with me. But on just looking at the charts, which is what I do, again, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not talking about my opinions or your feelings or my feelings. But just looking at the charts is the consensus should be, in my opinion, being a SERP go up, everything else pretty much go downwards longer term. Anyway, that was a bit of yap, but so good position so far for everything across the board. I'm trying to be quick today and a bit more efficient in the intros because I always spend too long talking and about stuff which doesn't really matter on the grand scheme of things. I think there's important conversations we have, or I say conversation, I am the one on the stream, so it might not be so much a conversation, but if I say something and you guys comment, I will see it. Obviously, I am in the Square chat and the YouTube chat right now, but in terms of if we have an important conversation, I will continue it. If not, I'm going to try and move on from it because I don't really want to yap too much. Anyway, looking on the 4 hour and right now for Bitcoin, we left off about... It would have been about Thursday, I reckon. Did I do Saturday? I don't know if I did Saturday. That's all blurring into one. I don't think I think I missed out on the Saturday stream. I'm pretty sure I didn't do Saturday. It's only like a few days ago. I'm pretty sure I missed out on it. Either way, I'll say I just did Thursday. So Thursday it would have been about here. Okay. Now what we were talking about this support previously, these sort of areas down here for these wicks, because we came past some massive lows here. In what we had, and then we had this massive wicks and then smaller bodies for the candles. Idea that it should be a rejection block and whatnot. We also have this red line, which I believe is nothing of concern when it comes to support areas. It's just equilibrium, but we do have the midpoint of this area being about 1,024. You can see we printed at that quite nicely, holding on for some support there. Obviously, if we go to lower time frames on the 50-minute, we'll probably see support within this move. For example, we have like gaps. Let's say we have this gap here. You can see we filled on that blue line. If you can see that there, we see we filled that perfectly. Also, importantly with this blue line, this is the bottom of this support of, where is it again? Oh no, I think it's just a low actually. I'm wrong. I think it was just a low, and that's why we had the rejection blocks here. We took this, we wicked past this low, and then we pumped back upwards to have a smaller body here, and obviously producing what should be a rejection block on the bottom, which obviously we can see we then came back into it and used as support, and then continued back upwards. So that was kind of the consensus, and why I said this is why I was saying on last stream that I think we could go upwards even more. I didn't think that this was going to be the high. I didn't think this was going to be high. There's numerous reasons. Number one being we had this support we could use. We have longer term support wicking past that blue line, obviously. And that was kind of it, really. Also, looking at the idea that we have the high to low equilibrium, that we didn't get actually towards equilibrium about 105. One of the areas I was looking at was in between about 105, around about here. Obviously, we have some resistances on lower time frames, which we're obviously coming to. And here, if it wasn't going to be here, it was going to be high towards 108. Was the two areas basically. So you can see we've finally come up above equilibrium, and we've seen a bit of we've obviously come to these resistances on lower time frames. I think on the 1 hour here, if we scroll in, you can see we have this here. For example, we have these two down close, which then get printed above here with these up close, and then we print through it again here. So this is a breaker block. You can see we come back into the midpoint here, for example, and we see resistance here. Importantly as well, with these with resistances like order blocks and breaker blocks, when you form a new one off of it, so for example, we have this one here formed. You can see we found resistance in these candles here, and we have this up close and then gets printed through these down close. This is now a resistance as well. So during that cross and looking at it, we can see we've been using this as resistance pretty nicely so far. It's not like it might not be permanent resistance. Obviously, we'll see as we go. We can see in this 1 hour move we've had so far, we're producing we weren't really producing many lows. It was kind of this main move coming upwards, and you can see we've kind of produced some of these highs here which haven't really moved. We've had this massive print through here, and we've started to come back up into it from this. So it's slowing down. It doesn't necessarily mean we're dumping now and it's over, But it was obviously, you know, we've kind of had this move. We've come to an area of resistance, or an area where obviously it makes sense to stop moving, and then we've started to slow down a bit. I'm not saying it's permanent. We'll continue to look at this, obviously. So obviously, for example, we have this little gap here which we printed through. We printed below it with this candle. We've come upwards. We could print through this. If we don't, obviously that will be a pretty bad thing in the sense that we had this gap here. We've come to a point of resistance here. We've reversed this gap with here, and then we use it here and then come downwards. That could be something which happens in theory, obviously. I want to go to 15 minutes just to see if there's anything going on. So you can see, like, for example, we've had, you know, again, this is the 15-minute, do bear that in mind. We've kind of had this come up, but we've had this massive expansion away from it with this move, and you can see we've retraced quite high into some of these gap areas here. But we'll see how it goes. Again, I don't really want to look at the 15-minute on a high time frame thing. But the main point for me is going to be we are in capable. Anything above 105 is in capable area to find resistance. Is just what I wanted to say. Importantly as well, what I want to say is we do have this here, which is a previous support we've used previous times over. So, for example, we use support here, we use support here. We did print at this midpoint, for example, and try to use it again. This was the Trump dump where we just cascaded downwards. But importantly, was this move we printed through this area. So this is the midpoint, this is the high, the low. So we do have that. Once we've printed through, again, should be resistance. So you can see, you know, for example, on these blue lines, looking at them, we can kind of see rough reversal of it, kind of trying to use it. But anything in between this previous resistance, and we have this blue line, which is the midpoint, which we could see resistance at for Bitcoin as well. So I'm not saying we are in an area of, I'm not saying this is guaranteed a resistance. Also, you can see we filled this gap pretty much to a T here. You can see we've had this massive gap here, which obviously produced it. And this is also something which is higher probability as well. When you produce one of these, like order blocks or propulsion blocks or breaker blocks, when you produce one of these and you also produce this kind of displacement downwards, which produces this inefficiency or gap or void or whatever, is a stronger likelihood for it to be used as a resistance. So obviously you have this candle here, which could be the midpoint of this gap. You also have the gap to be filled here as well. And obviously you can see we have this black line isn't quite, this is just a low. So if I draw across this low of here, you can see that is also sitting within this gap, which I think starts basically at the midpoint of this gap. If I delete this quickly and then draw this across, you can see this, that is the top end of this gap here. You can see we're kind of stopping it here and we're starting to reverse. So in the sense that there's a difference between just having a retracement to rebalance versus a stopping point in the chart, versus another way of saying it could be a reversal point or a point of interest where we could start to reverse and slow down and come downwards, for example. Again, I would never want to bet against the trend. Again, obviously you can see we've produced the high, and this was kind of the turning point. Obviously, definitely two same words there. I wasn't streaming during this, but this was kind of the consensus for me would be if we use this as support and continue upwards and fail to print a new low, it could mean if we have a fail swing for this new low and then start to come upwards, we could potentially see that print upwards. Eventually, you can see we did that, but coming from this rejection block here, we produced this massive expansion upwards, which produced this gap here, as you can see, midpoint around about there. We also produced a order block inside of this gap, which again, like I said, was higher likelihood. We also produced a inverted fair value gap here. So if we draw this line across, you can see we kind of came into this inverted gap pretty nicely. You can see this also stacks up as a order block here if we draw out the order block. So anything below the high of it, 102, is going to be a support area. And we had this massive expansion here as a gap. So we had three reasons. We had the order block, we had the major gap, but we also had this kind of bounce price range here to stop at. So perfect support here. So coming from this support, failing to swing, even though we didn't do a new high yet, we formed massive support here, which again we eventually used. And then this red line signifies we have now done a higher low, and then we've basically done a higher high, which again, the most important part of an uptrend is going to be the higher highs. You can do certain lows, you can wick past lows, you can do certain things, but the most important parts of downtrends are going to be, or of uptrends are going to be the new highs. And for downtrends, the important part is going to be the new lows. So clearly, obviously, from there, pointing out that fact, we have that reversal, we have that print past that high. So in this phase, anyway, we are clearly in quote-unquote an uptrend. But it doesn't necessarily mean, because again, it doesn't matter exactly where you are. The context is really what matters. You could be an uptrend or downtrend. You could be consolidating. You could be doing like a power free type of thing. What really matters is what sort of context you're in. You know, what's the context of your position? Because we could start an uptrend, and you know, the entire period coming from, coming from this high and producing this reversal here, and starting to actually dump down past these lows back at, in September time. That is this is long-term downtrend stuff. So contextually, yes, we are in a move upwards in this, but over the period, we have this move. We have this move here. If I highlight it a bit closer here, we have this move here where we have, again, this was a very sharp move downwards, I will say. We did have this order block I did talk about. I was more aiming towards 112 here for this, but we didn't reach there. We saw that high, and then we came down past this low. We are clearly in a downtrend. Regardless of if you're looking higher time frame across the whole board starting from October, or you're looking just in this period where we've been in a clear as day downtrend, massive expansion, small retracement, massive expansion, and then had a very big hoverage here, a bit of a reversal, kind of like a one of those things which people look at to slowly go upwards. But this isn't an expansion upwards printing past this. This is a very slow move upwards. It's started. It's taken, about 7 days, taken a week for us to basically sit in this area to get from about 99, 100k to 106. So it's taken a very slow period to get to this position, not very expansive. You can see these last two moves have been very expansive, very important for order flow, if you will. I don't know if that's the way of, I sometimes throw keywords out and they apply in my mind, but sometimes someone might have a different idea of what order flow means. But the flow of orders, if you will, the flow of the market flow. I'm gonna say the market flow. That's my new word. So the market flow. You can see the market flow against bulls versus bears, if you will. The bears are definitely a lot stronger. This isn't a downtrend. This is what a downtrend is. You have these massive down moves, these strong down moves, these confident down moves, and you have these very weak. Sorry for the bike. You have these very weak moves back upwards to rebalance the move upwards to have a higher, a higher low. There's going to be orders in these gaps. There's going to be orders in this period. We have these certain areas which are going to be considered important to see. Importantly as well, if we do, and obviously I'm not saying we do reverse here because it's anything in between 111 and 98k. This is the range we have for Bitcoin. Now I'm not saying we stop here. We obviously have reason to stop here, but we do have one higher on the daily time frame, which is very important as well. The daily time frame, the higher time frame, we do have this area at about 107. We do have these candles which go upwards, or this kind of move here, which we could pay attention to for the low here, paying attention to this gap about 1085. But like I said, looking at here, we've definitely done really well in terms of what we have here. We had a previous rejection block as well, which we've used, once or twice. But again, this wasn't really a usage, I would say, so much of it being a previous daily range from back here. But I mean, so far so good. I'm pretty happy with what we've done. But we've used this, we flipped it, we used resistance, we flipped it again, and have come back into it. So we could use it support again and go upwards. So I think for me to leave off Bitcoin, again, I do need to go on to. I'm trying to be faster today. I'm trying to be a bit more concise. Maybe not so concise, but a bit more streamlined. I don't want to jump all over the place. But in terms of what we have with this going on, we are definitely starting to get into a period where we could pay attention to the move back downwards. However, what I'll say is, again, like I was saying with 1 hour, 4 hour, this has been a strong move upwards. We haven't really seen a low in this move apart from 101. So the likely chance that we start to reverse, unless we do a system where we come past these lows, now that we've actually done a low in this move, being about 104.6. Apart from that is really going to be it. But again, the target we were talking about back here was definitely going to be about 105, 106 in this range. We also had these previous resistances as well. We had this area here. Actually, I completely forgot about this area. That I had drawn out. We have this the down move to the move upwards, which obviously we then eventually reversed and then stayed in. If I draw this across quickly, you can see we then printed through it with this down close candle and then stayed at the top end of this as well. So we can see obviously we have this reversed, which should be resistance as well. So we had a lot of resistances in this area. We also had this to kind of come into and fulfill. But obviously what I should probably say actually is going to be, if we draw this low across, the fact that you can see in this move upwards, we've actually printed through the gap here. So this is actually inverted. This has actually been an inverted area now. Again, like I said, I think the main thing for me would be focusing on the daily here. I actually have a range drawn, don't I? The daily range, of course, the daily range. Yes, the daily range here. Yeah, so the daily range comes into about 107. I think this is what I was talking about last stream. I was confused because I remember talking about a range, but I couldn't remember why. I can't remember why I couldn't find it on the 4 hour, because it was the daily range. So this changes everything. So again, the main focus here, and actually this what we've done recently on the 4 hour actually kind of feeds into what we've done here a bit closer. So we do have these resistances. We actually have this daily gap here, which is, I think, very important. I mean, I think this down close between these two Monday, Tuesday candles was even more important than just being a down close candle, because we had a situation where we produced this low in this case, came upwards and produced a new low which was higher than this, similar to how we did down here on the 4 hour, where we could have a scenario where we didn't produce a new low, came upwards and came past 116. which definitely would not have been a great thing for a downtrend. Again, if people want to go upwards, it's great for them. It depends on what context of the market you're in, or what position of the market you're in. Are you someone who thinks it's going to go upwards and you want it to go upwards, or are you someone who thinks it's going to go downwards and want it to go downwards? So it is really contextual if it's a good thing or not. But again, I'm a pretty bearish. I'm trying to think of something smart to say, and I can't think of anything. A bearish person. I'm just going to say bearish person. So for me, it's contextually closer to wanting to be on the bear side of things rather than the... What just happened? Oh, I pressed space, that's why. I was confused. Okay, yeah, that was really weird. That was really weird, actually. I was on Ethereum, that's why. I'm stupid. I was like, that does not look like Bitcoin in the slightest. Anyway, so yeah, so coming towards that area, somewhere above 107.6. Again, we've already hit towards this first gap at 105. Again, we've already talked about some of these areas. Again, 4 hour has been pretty strong upwards. So like I said, actually, I've only just realized we were looking at this now from this print. So you can see we did print through this. We did find resistance into coming into this area here, and then obviously we came down. But you can see we actually then used this as support, which makes sense. This is what makes sense. This is what I've looked at quite often. We for example, what I looked at down here, for example, this is what makes sense. We had this gap here we wicked into, then we dumped. So this is obviously going to be a higher probability candle. But we then came into higher time frame. Well, not high time frame. We came into the support again. This blue line is a low. We wicked past this low, produced this rejection block, came to the midpoint, printed at this area here, and then printed through this gap here. So again, that's kind of what I've already talked about. So it's the same concept here, coming into this gap where we have this gap here where it should be a resistance. Obviously, we are turning tides here. Again, we have this reversal here with this starting to go upwards. So again, if we are going to be going upwards, quote unquote, especially considering the fact that on the daily we want to come to at least above 107k, we want to pay attention to the fact that we might be leaning towards a bit more of a bullish scenario, which is what I was saying last stream. Again, I was talking about, I know I've said this already, but just reiterating the same point here. When we were talking about over here using this as support and reversing eventually was what I expected likely chance to happen going forward for Bitcoin, which obviously we did. So the idea that this is a good sign, I think, for the move upwards, that we are reversing these areas using them as support, again coming up into resistance, coming to the area of support, and then coming back upwards again. We'll see how it goes, obviously, and I think for me this is the low, the high, higher low, higher high. This is now the range, so I'm not necessarily thinking this has to be the low, but we can come downwards from this resistance because we've already produced a new high. In terms of this move, we can come downwards, which makes perfect sense, and then come upwards again to go upwards. But we don't have to, we don't have to. But I think for me, I'm not looking for where we're going to stop at, where we're going to do this, that, the other. It's more so of coming to the higher time frame target of about 107, 108, or at least 107.5, wherever this area is. But again, we have this area here. We have the top end of this area. We can see. This is important as well. I talked about this last time, I think, as well, where we have the high, the midpoint, the low of a massive range here, where you print through that midpoint and then you start to use it as resistance. You can see Actually, let's just go to the weekly here. We'll see it a bit clearer. Well, we haven't printed through on the weekly, but it's the concept's there. In terms of we've printed through with this candle, you can see we actually used it quite consistently in these periods of candles here. Obviously, we are coming upwards again. So the next stop for that is going to be this line here, coming upwards towards the high end of this resistance. Which, if you might see with your binocular vision, you may or may not see that this overlaps into the area I am looking at, which is this area here. So, maybe I'm too bullish, maybe I'm bullish, maybe I'm too bullish, and I'm too positive. And again, like I said, on the 4 hour, we didn't want to see this retracement. However, I think, on both the 4 hour range and the daily range, this is valid. This 108k area, 109k area is more than valid, in my opinion. Obviously not financial advice. So the sign that we're printing through this gap is a good thing, I believe. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to permanently stay there. We can come towards 103, towards some of these areas down here. I'm trying to look if there's anything here. I mean, we do have this candle which wicks past this candle and then prints through. So we do have some at 1023 as a support, which is actually bottom range of this gap, which actually is within the area valid. So we could come even lower. I'm not saying it's a specific area, but in terms of obviously I'm not saying you trade based on what I say. Again, none of this financial advice, but on the sense that so I was looking at this gap again. On the sense that if you were to look at this range and a retracement, if we were to see a new high, which we already have done, again, coming to previous point, because the idea now is going to be, for me anyway, is going to be continuing this move upwards to the higher time frame area, and we're going to be knocking out some of these previous areas on the way upwards. You know, there's going to be certain areas that, okay, well, we have this gap, we've reversed it and used as support. We have these areas, we're going to flip these using as support. So it's going to be kind of like a stepping stones, you know, milestones on each way upwards until we hit the actual area we want to see. We do have this blue line here, which I believe is the daily order block here. So there's a lot of stacked reasoning. There's a lot of confluence in that 109k area. I think Bitcoin could potentially get to, not financial advice. So we'll see how it goes. Again, we've only just started this move upwards. You know, maybe this could be a bait out. Maybe I'm an idiot and I'm seeing the wrong thing. This is a bait out, but we've only just started this move upwards. Again, we've looked at this reversal. This isn't some weird price action. We've been producing in this time period, 4 hour time period. I guess. Yeah, time period. We've obviously very strongly produced the highs and lows. You know, we've very strongly moved, and then we produced this low, and you can clearly see we've started that move. This is a very clear as day. We produced that low, we came upwards, we then failed to get past this low, and then reversed. So it's not that, you know, it's not that out of the order. It's not that crazy to say. So, you know, I mean, that's it really. So I guess we'll see how it goes for Bitcoin. I do think we can see higher. I've already talked about 109k. I think we have a lot of reasons to come to this area. Not financial advice. I do think we could start to reverse these areas. Bearing in mind as well, these are majoritively on the 1 hour time frame. Not saying it's any different because, you know, of X, Y, Z, but if you use a 15-minute support point on the weekly, it might not work. You know what I mean? Or it might not be as strong. So it's all about kind of time frame alignment. You know, keywords. You know, in terms of the idea that we're on the 4 hour here, this is a 4 hour uptrend. Obviously, again, we are talking about all this encapsulation of the daily range we're in, coming to about 108, 109k for this area here. So we'll see how it goes. I think we're starting a move upwards, decently high for this move upwards. Or not decent high, but relative to where we come from anyway, you know, a decent move upwards. So we'll see how it goes. Again, not financial advice. I do need to move on now because I have spent my 30 minutes on Bitcoin, so I will move to Ethereum. So with Ethereum, we have I think across the board we kind of have some similar scenarios. Solana, Syrup's a bit out there. CRO, I don't know if it's exactly like this, but in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum, slightly similar in relation to each other. We talked about this last stream in terms of the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then Solana, we did have some differences in speed, in distance, time, I guess, you know, the whatever. So in terms of what the relations were, Bitcoin and Ethereum were quite closely aligned together, if you will. So we can clearly kind of see that here now. Not so much, again, you know, Bitcoin, we've been in a support point. For example, this range on the weekly, again, with this midpoint here, we've seen a bit of resistance at, obviously looking at this previous rejection block we've had, but seeing these resistances, seeing it flip to support. So we've been in support, whereas Ethereum, I don't think it's been in a scenario like that. It's kind of just in the air from previous price action, with some gaps back there, for example, and some lows at 3350. Some stack lows actually at these two areas here. You know, these two areas here. You know, coming past these areas. You know, to come past and then come back upwards. Anyway, but in terms of the what I could expect the move could be relative to what we've actually done is has been the same. I'm trying to think of what this black line is. Okay. Oh, interesting, actually. So this was the area. I mean, this has kind of been the area we've talked about previously for Ethereum. You know, this was the gap of gaps. This is the monthly. I don't want to be here. Okay. So we talked about this move. Again, we talked about this reversal. You know, we had this big old down move here. We actually printed here, to be fair. But we printed past this low, so as of what we knew, we were going to see resistance here come downwards. More importantly, though, we produced this massive gap from here and then came down. And then as soon as we printed above this with this 7th of July candle, that was kind of the stepping stone to think, okay, cool, we're going to be in this bit of a move upwards. And then from there, we can see we did, I don't know what the red line's drawn here. It's kind of stuff in the way. You know what, I'm just going to delete this on this area. Whatever. If it's so important, I can draw it again. And then obviously we printed past, in terms of the wide area we had this move upwards, we had this move down, but most importantly, we printed past all this with this move and had a retracement. So similar to how we had with Bitcoin, where we've been in an uptrend for quite a while now, where we want to see these retracements to higher time frame lows before we continue back upwards. The only thing being we wicked past the all-time high back here, or what I have on this range anyway, on I guess on Bybit, I guess this chart's on. We wicked past this, we didn't print on the weekly relative to this high on the pretty much the same time. Not really, maybe a month and a bit out, but wicking past this high and then coming downwards again. So we haven't printed past that high, but in terms of relative to what our range is, sorry about the bike, we have this high which we've printed past. So the idea that we want to be looking at coming back downwards is quite strong. I don't actually, you know what, I should probably draw this. Or this is the recent low before move upwards, which is kind of what you want to do. You want to do the most recent low and the most recent high. So that's why I have this. I remember now. But whatever. It's still relative to the same. In terms of where we are, it's still relatively the same area. Pretty much. Whatever. I'll change it if needs be. So the area focusing on about 2,000, coming towards about 2,900. I think I was looking more towards the lower end of this area and basically the top end of this area. We also had this candle here, which came into this gap and then pumped upwards. This is going to be support if I've ever seen one. And then obviously came upwards. So in the idea that we could come lower towards about 2,700, which I know was a conversation or something we talked about a long time ago on stream. I don't know if Kishan said anything about it. I think KB said something about his area long term for Ethereum. Yeah, it was around about these areas, I think it was, for long term. So again, we haven't come to that exact area, but we have come to the bottom end of the first of two, if you will, or maybe it could be the first two. Again, it doesn't have to be. Again, anything below the equilibrium is going to be something we want to be looking for. But again, we are continuing this move downwards so far, especially on the weekly here, having this range. It's about 3,686 for the top end of this wick for this candle here, which is kind of outlying. So something we might want to come to see, which obviously you can see kind of sits within what we have here, which going on to actual price action now. So we have this daily candle here, which is this, we have this reversal printing through the top end of this, retracing into this gap here, we're coming basically to the bottom of this gap here, and then printing upwards. So this is an order block. We have seen this area before. Again, we had this massive event. Obviously, we came down to this area. Importantly as well, to be fair, we did have this candle, which obviously have come into previous price action and then pumped through. So this was a support area, but I have more so marked out this area relative to what we had coming up above here. This was quite a low point, but obviously we then came down even high. So it makes sense we stopped here, but I didn't have it drawn out. But from there, apart from that move, which everyone cried about, we then have been seeing it used quite nicely. Again, the top end of this has been used quite nicely here. Eventually printing through it with this and then coming back upwards. So the idea that now it could be resistance, very similar to how we've had here. Again, we've had these periods where we've seen, again, we've obviously pumped, yes, we have pumped previously, but the areas where we've finally retraced and printed through these areas with this and then come upwards and found resistance at midpoint, came up again, found resistance again. Again, we've had two areas of resistance, not only this big one, but this little one as well. So basically this line is basically where it is of reversal. So we've seen resistance there once. Again, we did continue upwards. We've seen resistance there, resistance there. So we have seen two major reversal points happen at the reversal of what was a support point. So same concept here, same talking, which is that we had this support point, which I have used previously quite often, about 4 times here, but actually 5 times with these two lows, finally printing through it, obviously, as we've been in this massive move downwards across the board as well, I should mention. The idea that we could maybe use this as a resistance area. So we are at that midpoint at about 36. What I will say, though, and similar to how we have with Bitcoin, where we've printed through the midpoint of that major resistance on the weekly. And what I actually should say more so is that this is actually I should probably just draw this. I don't really know why I have this drawn. It's this area about 3,900 is a bit higher than what we want to do, but it's around about where these highs are. But we do have a major resistance in this weekly area. I don't know which one it is actually. Oh yeah, this is the top of it, so it's going to be about there. There we go. So you can see that we're at that midpoint again with this daily here, but this whole area is going to be resistance. So whatever, the top end of this resistance sits at that gap. Also, similar to how we've done with Bitcoin, where we draw out this retracement. I think the difference between Bitcoin and whatnot is the difference between what we have. So again, this was our reversal, and then we started this move. So actually, I should probably draw it here. Maybe I think that's what I did with Bitcoin. Yeah, we have it drawn from the top, so we don't have it drawn from there from the top. So I'll do the same thing here. I don't know why I don't have it drawn out right now. Okay, I don't know why I have those. But again, anywhere the equilibrium is, basically, I don't really care about this. It's just arbitrary. So in terms of coming above this area, we're only just about getting up to it. So we're actually a bit closer to pinnacle, in theory, than Bitcoin is. So Bitcoin's a bit further away from this. You can see this is where Bitcoin should be at. This is where Ethereum's at. So Ethereum, relative to Bitcoin, relative to the range, relative to everything, is about, in Bitcoin's price, about 107,636. So you can see we're at, actually right now we're not. We wicked to it. But in terms of the high we got off this range is what I'm talking about. So obviously for Bitcoin's case, it was 106,670, but we're a bit higher we're about $1,000 relative to Bitcoin and Ethereum for here. So, in Ethereum's case, we've already touched into this area a tiny bit, with kind of equal highs here, actually. So it'd be interesting if we have a daily print here to get past. It would be pretty cool. But you can see we've kind of wicked down into this candle, which obviously makes sense. We've finally printed through this gap and reversed it. So this is very important for the longevity of a move like Ethereum's. Bitcoin on the 4 hour, we reversed a gap and start to use its support. On the daily for Ethereum, you can see we printed through this gap here on the daily. Massive down close anyway. But again, it makes sense because it's like, okay, someone sees this down move and goes, okay, well, we have gap here. Why don't we use the first one? Well, for me anyway, it's going to be looking at that equilibrium and looking at where is a fair value price to stop moving upwards in theory. It's going to be anything above that red line, which is anything, it's going to be anything into this area, which obviously, if we look, what do we see? Well, there's not really much of there's not really much of this, I would say. There's not really much of an order block per se, but it is definitely it definitely is really just looking at this range between 3834 and 3657. Okay, so the confluence with this, for me, the stacked confluence is definitely going to be 3721 for this top end of this resistance. Obviously we're at the midpoint right now, but I think obviously we could continue to get upwards, considering the fact that we have this massive inverted gap here, which we could be using, which we have seemingly been using after we've printed through it here. We've came back downwards into it. Like if I draw it out quickly with a rectangle, we can kind of see, yeah, here we go, perfect. This is actually beautifully used. So, for example, we've printed above it with this move, the green candle on the daily here, and you can see we've had that retracement. We've hit into the it's actually a really good price action on the 1 hour if you look at it. So we've had that print at the bottom end of the order block on the daily, as we talked about here, and you can see we've been slowly retracing downwards, and then this is the midpoint of this gap here, which we've used. Obviously, we have actually started to produce this gap here. More importantly, on Ethereum, we've had this move upwards, kind of a high area. We've had this massive move downwards, similar to everything across the board, where we've produced this gap, where we've started to come back upwards into it. So we do have this support. Similar how Bitcoin has its previous rejection block, which we've reversed, is about a support area, and it has its the inverted gap area on the 4 hour, which this doesn't really have too much of a... It would have been this, actually, to be fair, I think, roundabout. It would have been that area. Yeah, similar to how I said with Bitcoin, though, we do have this reversal. We've printed through it with here, most recent low to most recent high. Actually, with this, though, to be fair, the low has been tickled upon, if you will. But if we do see resistance in this gap on the 4 hour, 1 hour, and we come down, I wouldn't mind, I really wouldn't care about seeing a move to 3,500 for a bit of a higher low here. But if we continue this move upwards, then it would be pretty strong anyway, especially considering the fact that we have a hit into this midpoint of this range, and we could come down to see a low. So this might not be the end of it in terms of relative to what we could see on the 4 hour, based on the fact that the low to the high, we just barely seen that low. We could go lower, where we have this small little gap on the 4 hour here. On the 1 hour is a lot bigger, so we could see that retracement, and that could lead into feeding back into not only this, but we have this range here where we have the gap on the previous where we printed through, but we also have this little gap which we've not produced, we haven't printed yet, but we've kind of fed into this candle. So we could fill this entire thing coming basically towards 3,479, which is also where the price is on the 4 hour when it comes to looking at this range here, coming towards this gap area, about 3,480. So I could see lower potentially, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think long term, regardless of what I say in the specifics, I think I definitely want to see it come towards 3,700 area, towards at least above 3,658 towards this gap area. I mean, it could come as high as the 3,847 for this high point. Again, if we look at this, we have these two highs here. We kind of come past it, printed through, so we could maybe see resistance at the top end of this candle, which is 3,840. So we could see a bit higher, but I do definitely think coming into this gap is going to be a decent priority for what we're doing right now for Ethereum. So again, we'll see how it goes, but pretty much the same thing I said with Bitcoin as well, kind of in the same board, or in the same boat, I should say. So we'll see how that goes. I do think upwards. I think I'll leave off with an up or down word. Upwards. There you go. That's my analysis. Solana. So again, obviously Solana's been in a different case here, or not so much of a different case. Kind of a scenario of it's kind of. We've seen a lot faster a move downwards. Again, we talked about this reversal previously, the breaker block on the 4 hour, whatever it was exactly. We've talked about this reversal. I think I might have posted in the Telegram, but this was obviously the pinnacle of the move, this massive move, and it was faster than Bitcoin, Ethereum. Out of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana was the fastest move. So what we have is we have this. I don't know why I have the whole thing drawn out. It should just be this. but for the rejection block. So we have this massive wick here coming into this candle, and a massive, tiny, massive move back downwards to print slightly negative here for this candle, tiny body. So this is a rejection block. You can see we wick past this low here, print above it, come back up into resistance, come downwards for this move here. Obviously, you can actually see on the 1 hour, this is actually just a order block. That's what it would have been. It would have just been an order block, wouldn't it? That's why I had it drawn. So it would have just been an order block here. You can see we reversed it, came past this low, continuing to print downwards, retraced resistance, printing into this gap, into these two candles here, about... I can't really draw it properly. About there, you can see using it here, and then obviously continuing back downwards. So, pretty good. And that was obviously old price action. So, again, we've had the reversal. We've had everything across the board. Pretty much the same. Again, having that main low, producing the rejection blocks previously on this. You can see with this one, obviously coming from the other one as well. You can see if we use this candle, you can see we wicked on that midpoint pretty nicely there for the rejection block here, finding that support for that higher low, failing to do a new low. Obviously, the signs are there, and doesn't necessarily mean we're in an uptrend, but the signs are there where we do that new higher low. We fail to print. I think most importantly would be as well, like, of this trend, of a change in where you're moving would be printing past the recent highs of this, but of the actual trend we have, it's going to be printing past 164, which obviously we did do eventually. So obviously from there we did do a new high. Again, this was a massive gap area, so looking at that retracement, wicking past this high, we can see we just about came into equilibrium. We reversed this gap here as well. You can see that low, the low of this order block, I don't know why that's not exactly on it. The low of this order block also coincides with this kind of inverted gap area, so you can see we kind of used it here, printing at that bottom end, so kind of using this as support and then continuing upwards to find the resistance at the previous area we talked about. So coming upwards, I have a blue line here. I don't know what this blue line's for. I think the top end, where the rest of this gap is, I suppose, to continue this area. I think I don't have a range drawn. So obviously this was the reversal. We had a bit of a reversal down here for this move. We have the most recent high to the low of this range for the 4 hour and probably the daily as well. You can see we're just about getting into that equilibrium here, coming upwards. So what do we have? Well, we have obviously this order block of 1 hour, this rejection block on the 4 hour. But most importantly for me is going to be this 4 hour gap here, 170. Obviously, if not, we have this purple line, I believe, is the midpoint of this previous daily order block here, which is now a breaker block. So we have resistance there. We also have this candle here, which we use as support and is now resistance. So we do have something as low as 178, but we do have this wick here. You can see we have these two up close, which come past this high here, coming into this breaker block area, and then dumping past this low, so 182. So we do have 178, 182 in this gap. So there's a lot of confluence in that 180 area. So there's not really much here. I won't lie. There's not really much here. There's the bottom of this. Like, this is the bottom of the order block on the daily. You can see we have this daily order block here. We have this sitting in this gap. So on a minimum, we could see it stop there. Absolutely at anything above 167 coming to 172. And it could make sense. Obviously, we'll see how it goes. But there's a lot of confluence a bit closer towards 178, so we'll see how it goes. Again, it's not kind of cut and dry. We do have two areas, but it's not a very big area. There's not really too much on it. Again, like I said, there is this massive gap on the daily. Looking at this candle here and then this massive move upwards, we have used that midline previously as well, in this area before we dump past it. So starting there being about 172. Actually, again, this is the mistake I just made with Bitcoin, which I should say again, which is the daily range, number one, and the daily gap. Okay, yeah, so I think we do go a bit higher. Okay, on the 4 hour, we do have 172, but you can see anything above 176 is going to be optimum. We have that 178 low. We have coming into this resistance with this massive gap on the daily. I think 176 above 178 is going to be a good target for Solana. I do think we can come higher than where we are right now. I think we'll slowly reverse what we're doing right now and continue upwards for Solana to 178, if you will. So, getting on towards Syrup and CRO now. I'm doing pretty well for time. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I have Square open. There's not really a lot of chatter. There's a lot of hellos, so that's obviously everyone in Square, but I'm not giving you money. So, yeah. I'm not giving you any money. You can just do something else, okay? There's something you can do. I'm sure there's something you can do which will give you money and not spending time on the stream. I appreciate you joining the stream and commenting, but you're not going to get any money. But anyway, going on to Syrup now. I think I might actually end the stream. I'm not ending right now, that's what I'm saying, but I have 15 minutes left. I don't think I'm going to spend 15 minutes on Syrup and CRO. This might be a stream where I actually end it early. It's 9:50. I started stream 5 minutes late because I was watching something downstairs with my parents, and it's 10 minutes left, and I'm nearly done. So I'm pretty happy. We might end for 10. Obviously, I started the timer 5 minutes late after 9. Obviously, the clock struck 9, if you will. Anyway, syrup. So we can see we're printing past this high here with this candle. We can continue upwards. I think syrup's doing very well. Positivity. Positivity. What am I talking about? So this is kind of what I want to talk about. Being this move, and obviously anyone who's a bull pennant user will go, oh my god, it's the bull pennant. We're doing it. Oh my god, the bull pennant struck. We have 3 bounces in a bull pennant, and then we're all bull flag. We're bull flag. We're 3 bounces in a bull flag, and we're gonna rip, guys. All-time highs. Here we come for syrup. Now, my conclusion for where I think syrup's gonna go has not spawned from me looking at anything like a bull flag, or bull pennant, whatever. But I could understand if someone was to look at this move and then this kind of move here with these lows and go, oh, well, this is the move. Even though, if you were to draw this, let's be real here, nothing has a good amount of price action. Gee. Come on. Okay, here we go. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, we have it coming upwards, and then we have it, you know, coming downwards. Oh, here we go. It's the high, and it's going to come upwards from here. You would have failed, number one. I just want to say that. You would have failed pretty drastic. You would have failed by 32%. And you think the price is going to go to $1. It's going to go to $1. I don't even know what's the circulating supply. I don't even know what the max supply of syrup is. I don't even know, but apparently you think it's going to go to $1. I don't even know what's the market cap. Does TradingView give you any data? It gives you the volume. Whoop-de-doo. Where's... Oh, here we go. Hold on. What's price ranges? Oh, I don't care. I just... Why can't it integrate, like, a small bit of coin market cap and go, oh, well, you can see this is the price and whatnot, but this is the volume, this is the circuit supply. Why can't it give some more... I know, to be fair, what I will say, this is... this isn't crypto first, to be fair. This isn't crypto first. This isn't crypto first. This is a lot of other stuff first. So, you know what I mean. Anyway, let's go back to the chart. So, what I've been saying, obviously on the weekly, is the idea that we have the low to the high, below equilibrium, about 38, lower than 38 cents. And you can see, ever since we did that, we never touched it until this move, 28. I did want it to come to 26. I thought 26 would have been a very nice area. But, whatever. You know what I mean? We had this order block here. If we draw out the low to the high, you can see we did have this order block. We produced downwards. We came into it, produced downwards again, came into it, slowed down, gap here, boom, kapow, off we go, printing past it. And then you can see we printed past it with this candle. You can see we traced back into it and then continue on our way. Very good. So this is obviously top end max. Obviously we had 23 here, but this was obviously optimum area. We had 26, but I'll give it all fairness. Anything below red line is somewhere you want to focus on, and there's probably different areas. I didn't actually look at the monthly. I probably should have looked at the monthly. So obviously we have the gap. I mean, anything below 33 cent now for the monthly is actual optimum area. So we tickled into this area, and now we're coming upwards. So even on the monthly, we can see, we had these highs area. We came downwards, came upwards, producing past this high. We want to see that retracement. We have that retracement to find that low. Where do we want to target? We want to target the highs. So we've done that low. I'd be very interested to see if we can print past 52. I want to see us come upwards and then see how it goes. So that's the long-term monthly, weekly syrup, which is what I was saying in the intro as well, where it might be a thing where, it's a lot of a higher time frame. It takes a longer time to occur. It takes a long time for us to get up to these areas. However, it still is in play. The ball's in play. It's not like it's out of the ordinary. It's not like we're going to be on Mars by the time syrup's going up towards 62, 67 cents. So, anyway, let's go to the daily so we can talk about some more recent price action. So we have obviously the print throughs here. We've been talking about previous areas. So I think what I was talking about last was on the daily here. We had this resistance. We went past this high. We didn't print. Oh no, that's Saturday. Hold on. Thursday. Oh, here we go. So I was talking here, I think. So I think I was talking about the idea. We came to resistance. We went past the high. We didn't print a new high. We came down. We didn't print a new low. We've been doing these new highs. Again, what matters more in a downtrend is printing new lows. And if we're not going to print new lows, we're not in that downtrend. Simple as. We have this order block, I believe is the purple line here, the bottom end of it. So you can see we're kind of sitting in this area. We have the previous gap here, which obviously we're kind of sitting in. We've been printing into it, used it once, used it again, coming upwards. And finally, we have now printed again. We had this gap here. You can see we used it as a resistance. We came back into this big old candle. But importantly as well, this candle, which comes into all this juicy area over here, is actually now an order block here. So you can see if we draw this along here, you can see we retraced into this area nicely as an area of support, if you will. So again, good sign here on the higher time frame that this is a more optimal area. It's a lot better to look at this on the 4 hour though, because we can actually see some more detail where you can see, obviously, for example, we have these gaps on the way downwards. We have this reversal on this. You can see we printed really nicely, really nicely on the low end of this order block. You can see we printed there really nicely. So again, we didn't print outside of it. We're doing absolutely fine. We're continuing upwards. You can see we had this reversal here, continuing upwards for SERP. So you can see we had this area, we have this whole kind of gap area here, wick, small body. What is this now? A rejection block. So anything starting from here, obviously I'm going to draw the whole range here. You can see touching that midpoint really nicely. Oh no, never mind, we didn't. No, I'm stupid. Well, we came into it, we used its support, came upwards, okay? So we do have that reversal, pretty nice. So going into the 4 hour here, we can see it a bit in a bit more detail. So obviously having these expansions upwards, using these on the way upwards, a very good sign of a normal uptrend. Again, you have these expansions, you have these retracements into these gaps, taking these lows, for example, coming upwards. This is now going to be a order block here as well, I should add, at 42 cents. We have these gaps here. Obviously, you can see we've used this resistance. Obviously, here we used it here. We had previous resistance with these purple lines here, but again, we've reversed it. Importantly here as well, we have this reversal with this gap, but more importantly, we have this print through this gap here. We also have inverted gaps on the way upwards here. Also as well, I should say, we had this order block here. So I'm gonna delete this. You can see we had this order block. We have this massive gap producing from the resistance. This is a reversal, massive gap. Retrace into it above 44.015 with this green candle, and then bang right through it. So this area is obviously going to be a good area for support. This is obviously going to be resistance in this case. Again, we continued upwards, but we expanded upwards. We printed past it. Very important, because again, we're not seeing resistance here. We haven't printed new lows. We're not in a downtrend. We don't want to see this resistance just yet. Printed through it, printing past the high. Great. Importantly as well, printing through this area. I'm going to make this a different color. There you go, a nice little purpley one. And you can see the midpoint we used very nicely. Again, what do I always say? You know, the gaps plus the order blocks, a higher probability confluence for a support. So you can see we had this gap here on the way upwards. We also had this order block. You can see we stopped right there, coming into this gap and coming to there. Also importantly as well, if we draw out the high to a low, we can see we're below equilibrium. So this is the checklist. You know, we have order block check, fair value gap check, below equilibrium check. Cool. And then we did that, and obviously we come upwards. We haven't produced a new high yet. However, this massive orange area is, I believe, a daily order block, which we've printed through. And you can see we have gap plus daily order block at the midpoint. We're using its support here. So we are actually above into a good area now. Obviously, on the daily here, we haven't quite printed, but we have printed through that midpoint. So it'd be nice if we could see that move upwards as we kind of want to see. So we're starting to turn around a bit. What I do want to draw out is the daily range. And you can see the daily range here as we come upwards. We could come up higher towards printing past this gap. I would like to see that towards maybe into this rejection block as we have here. You can see we have this high. We wick past this high, small body. That is now a rejection block. This wasn't really much of a rejection block. This one now is. We have this massive wick, small body, down close. Great. So we can draw a line here from the start of that rejection block. You can see we tickle into it there. But also we have this area here. We tickle into it there. So we do have resistance into that area. Coming to maybe towards 51 cent, 51.8 would be nice. We also have this previous gap area we've used previous times over. So it'd be interesting if we could come up one more time. However, we could go down again. We've produced a new high. We've printed past a new high. That's all that matters for me for SIP. So looking at this, we have that retracement in theory. It comes to about 42 cent towards this gap again, from what I can see. We also have this inverted gap, which obviously you see we used it. Order block support. Printed through obviously here. So the bottom of this gap is also, the bottom of this inverted gap is also going to be a order block. So we do have this area about 41.5 as a pretty optimum area, I would say. So if we look at where the equilibrium is, it's about 42.5. So I'm going to mark out this low. I'm not saying we have to come into here, but a very strong chance that this is going to be a good support point. Let's do a different line here. So a green line. So that's I think a very strong area. We have the inverted gap. We have this as a actual support point. We're below equilibrium. We've filled, we've taken this low. We filled the rest of this gap, and we're filling this gap here. So this is probably a very strong area within this about 43, 41.5, 42 cent area, I think will be very strong as a support. So we've already printed that high. So even if we come down right now, we can still do a new high and still be in this uptrend for SERP. Again, thinking about what we want on the weekly, we want uptrend on the weekly, we want uptrend on the daily here. We're trying to print past this order block here. It'd be good if we could do that and continue upwards. It would be great. I mean, I would actually prefer if we didn't, because then we can use it as resistance, come to find our high, and then print through it. Because if we print through it, come through and print through it again, it'll be resistance again. So I kind of want to see it. It would be nice to stop here again. You can see 3 wicks here. We're kind of failing to get upwards. We're definitely slowing down, as you can see. We're really slowing down when it comes to SERP. So I wouldn't be surprised if we could continue downwards or come downwards at least and see this area here for a support before we go upwards. Print past this daily order block range here and then start to find 48.7, 48.2 I should say as support. And yeah, come upwards. And obviously we have our previous areas up here, which obviously we can pay attention to on the previous way upwards. But I think milestone would be printing past 52.8. I think that'd be a great milestone for SERP for its longevity of an up move. But again, we have started that reversal ever since. Obviously, we've had this massive down move. We've started that reversal now, actually coming upwards. And I think it could be, if we can continue this, not financial advice, it could be great. But again, you know, I don't want to say one thing for SERP and say everything else for everything else. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But this is just what I see on the chart. Yeah, this is what's in the chart. So, CRO. Let's see what's going on. I haven't really looked at this off stream. I'm not gonna lie. We have had that print through. Again, this has been that rejection block. We have kind of used pretty much across the board. We haven't really hit that midpoint yet. I want to go to the daily here. Do we have anything in our previous price action? We can have this gap here, I suppose. You know, previous gap, which we can you know, kind of see we've used here, I guess, could be support. My main thing, though, on the daily, similar to everything else, is we do have this high to a low coming into about. We have this kind of wick here, I believe, is a 4-hour resistance. We have this massive gap on the daily here, which again is pretty much across the board the same. So CRO, Ethereum, Solana, and Bitcoin all have a very similar price action when it comes to new low of this range, massive gap on the daily with an order block or some sort of resistance, a breaker block, whatever it may be. SERP on the other hand is very different. So this is why I'm kind of more not fully confident, but more confident. You know, it's all about probabilities. I'm more confident to say SERP could go upwards in the future as opposed to everything else. Anyway, continuing. So again, I'm going to keep it short and sweet here. We've got to about 2 minutes. It's about 10:02. Keep it short and sweet and just say I think we could continue upwards at least towards about 14 cent is what I could say. We have this interestingly as well. I have this rejection block, you can see. Coming back, wicking past this low, printing small body here, finding support this top end, coming to about the midpoint here, reversing. And what we did with Bitcoin tells me we can reverse these support points. You know, we also have technically this area here. I haven't really used rejection blocks in a long time. We have this here. We support, reverse it. You can see we're kind of using it as resistance again here. But anyways, whatever. We have that there, which is a lot higher. So whether this be a 4-hour order block, which it is here, very good order block here at 14 cents. We have a rejection block on the daily time frame. We have this gap on the 4-hour and the daily at about 14.2. So I definitely think CRO could do resistance at this area. Not financial advice. And we've been producing these new lows, and it is within our range at about 14.3, I'd say. Coming up towards the top of this range, probably the top of this 4-hour one at 14.38. So we'll see how it goes, but I definitely think CRO could see resistance there, not financial advice. That's pretty much it though. 10:03. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone joining the stream. I know it was I didn't really send the stream, 10 minutes later or anything, or I didn't send the stream with 10 minutes in advance. Obviously, sent it, like basically when it was 10 o'clock. So in terms of the output of this stream, it's a Kishan and KB pretty much. And obviously Mike was here. So again, thank you everyone on Square. Not too many people on Square, but thank you nonetheless. Thank you obviously everyone on YouTube. If Kishan's still here, thank you. I should read the chat. I haven't read the chat yet. 102k to 110k is good for a week. Yeah, I mean if we go to 110k, if we don't, then if you're rounding it off, then yeah, sure. But yeah. So if I'm around, don't worry, it's fine. Good information. Thank you. Thank you, KB, for watching as well. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I have nothing else to say. I mean, I think I'm on a stream. When does it? Let me check something. I'm on a stream with some other people. I don't know what we're doing actually. I actually don't remember what we're doing. I think we're talking with people. I don't know when this is. The AMA with Polygon. So if you like Polygon and you want to see me on it, and and you want to hear about it, it's there. It is actually tomorrow. What time is it actually? Oh, you can see it on the screen. Oh no, you can't see it on the screen. Stupid. I can show it on the screen though, just in case people are interested in, or you guys are interested in it. There you go. So this is what I will be on this, tomorrow when it happens. I won't be on it afterwards. So UC plus 2, so it'll be about 2:30 my time. But it is tomorrow, so wherever that is for you guys, I will be here. So an audio live AMA. So I have a question to ask, I guess. I think I've got to ask them a question. I don't know what I'm asking them, but I'll figure it out. I don't know who I'm. I think I'm with some. I don't know who I'm with exactly, but I'm with some people. But we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'll be there if you guys want to see that. 70k Mike Sir predicted scared me. Mike said 70k. Really? Never thought I'd hear that from him. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that low. I actually don't think that low. I mean, that's obviously not financial advice. I've got my opinions and whatnot. Everyone has their opinions, because anything anyone says in this community is opinion. Again, I don't really think there's that many professionals. There's people who are close to professional, absolutely. But, I don't think there's that many professionals. But 70k, I mean, maybe. It could go that low. I don't think it's going to go that low. But, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'll be on that live tomorrow, which is Tuesday. And then I'm back Wednesday. You're going to have a lot of me, actually. You got me today. You got me tomorrow. You've got me Wednesday with a dog quiz, which is going to be brilliant. I can't wait for that. And then you got me Thursday again with the charts. And then I'm back on Saturday. So the only time I'm not doing it is going to be Friday. So all things considered, obviously sometimes I've had some work to do. I've had things to do. And it's overlapped with time frames. Obviously some people in different time zones overlapped with streams. So I do apologize for missing some of these streams. But if all things are equal, all things being equal, I think I'm live every day apart from Friday. So you'll see me tomorrow if you do watch that stream. If not, you'll see me Wednesday, obviously on the dog quiz with Mike, which will be, I think, pretty great. So yeah, wish you guys the best. Have a great rest of your Monday in Circle. In Circle. What is that? Is it? What, he said that on a stream or something? Well, he said it either way. I don't matter. It doesn't matter where he said it. He said it. So yeah. Hey, if that's his opinion, I'll ask him off. I didn't actually know that. I'll ask him off stream. I'll ask him what he thinks. Because I think, because again, I've talked about 90k consistently. Like 90k, 90k, 90k has been my number for so long, and I think. I guess we'll see how it goes. I guess I guess we'll see if we get to 70k. I don't know if we'll get to 70k. In my opinion, anyway. Obviously, let me have a quick glance before I end the stream. I know I'm supposed to end the stream, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's win between about 92 to 87. I know that's a very, very wide range, but the overlap of likelihood for me is 88.8. 88.8. 90k I2. Do you think a 90k too? That's good. I'm glad some other people think 90k. But again, it's all opinion, not financial advice. 70k. Why does he think 70k? Lower than our previous low? Eesh. I wonder what he thinks about 70k. Maybe, you know what? Bull market support band. Let me see. Let me see what the big old bull market support band is saying. Doesn't it change based on time frames? I don't really know how this works. I don't know how this works. I'm not professional. We've got a thingy-majiggy, don't we? We've got a little death cross. You know what I mean? We've got a little death cross here. We had the little death cross, and we pumped, and then death cross pump. Death cross. You know what I mean? Death cross. See how it goes, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Let me delete this. I don't want this on my chart. I need to end the stream. I'm just here for the reason. Literally just here for the sake of it. Let me just go. Don't forget me. I'm not giving you any money. If Mike's doing a giveaway in the Binance chat, he might be. Then sure, there's your ID. You've typed it. I'm sure Mike will see it. If you're talking to me on the screen and you're asking for money, you're not gonna get any money. So don't bother. Okay? I'm sure if you figured out some other, if there's some other like Asian streamer who gives money out to people who comment, go watch them. Okay, because that's not me. I don't do that. All right. Maybe if I've got 10 million, I might consider it, but I don't have $10 million. So, maybe one day. But I'm in the stream. Thank you. See you guys tomorrow if you watch the stream. If not, see you guys Wednesday. Thank you. Goodbye.